When should something you say or post about politics on your own time affect what happens to you at work? It's an issue my next guest is grappling with after he was fired from his job at Babson College over something he wrote on his personal Facebook page in response to a tweet from Donald Trump. It was shortly after the U.S. strike that killed Iran's top general, and Trump was warning against retaliation, tweeting, "If Iran strikes any Americans or American assets, we have targeted 52 Iranian sites, some at a very high level and important to Iran and the Iranian culture." I should note that cultural sites are protected under international law. So Trump's threat drew a lot of reaction, including from Asheen Fanseh, who was then the director of sustainability at Babson College. He wrote on Facebook, "In retaliation, Ayatollah Khomeini should tweet a list of 52 sites of beloved American cultural heritage that he would bomb. Mall of America, Kardashian residence." Fanseh later said the post was meant to be sarcastic, calling it a bad attempt at humor. And after negative reactions poured in, he deleted the post, but not before it caught the attention of Babson officials who suspended, then a day later fired him, saying in part, quote, "Babson College condemns any type of threatening words and or actions condoning violence and or hate." But in the weeks since, many high-profile free speech advocates have come to Fanseh's defense, including writers Salman Rushdie, Joyce Carol Oates, and Roseanne Cash, and more than 300 others who signed a letter calling on the school to reinstate him. So far, they have not. Asheen joins me now. Good to meet you. Thanks so much for being here. Can we start at the end? Is there any evidence that Babson is contemplating changing their decision in light of this outpouring? By the way, it's not just those individuals. American PEN, which is a literary and human rights organization, is supporting your cause here. Any indication that they're thinking of switching their position?
You know, Jim, I've really been gratified by all of the national outpouring of folks that are really concerned about free speech on college campuses. It's been really nice to see that pressure on Babson. It's going to be on them to decide essentially.
Any evidence that they're relenting in the face of that pressure, or not yet?
I haven't spoken to them.
What was your intent with the Facebook post? I mentioned what your quote was that I had read in either the Times or the Boston Globe. What was your intent?
Yeah, so the context of it was originally I shared a post about the lead up to the Iraq War and all of the rhetoric that was essentially causing that and the fallout of that. And then, as you had talked about, I shared a post of a lot of beautiful Persian cultural sites that our president would purport to bomb, and said this is a war crime. Let's dial back this rhetoric. Let's make sure that we don't use this escalating rhetoric to lead to violence. And then that was the context of that post, which was essentially just satirical. It was saying, you know, what in the context of, you know, what would America threaten? You know, where does this lead? Where, you know, what sort of cultural statement does this make?
What was the first indication that you had that Babson had a problem with what you had posted?
So they called me and said, hey, we're seeing this post on this blog. What is this? And, you know, I hadn't any inkling that it was, you know, had been made public, that it was posted on my private page to friends that I know have understood my history of, you know, occasional satire and sort of
this
just
is a private
critical.
Page, you said?
It was a private page. It was my private Facebook page, 2 friends. And one of them took a screenshot and sent it to this blog, who then posted it with a, you know, sort of sensationalized headline and said, you know, hey, this is someone that doesn't like America.
So did Babson suspend you on the spot?
Within an hour or so, yeah.
And by the way, they've said to the press, they then investigated promptly and thoroughly, and a day later, they fired you. We asked what that prompt and thorough investigation was, and they didn't respond. What did they do in that 24 hours? Do you know?
I don't know, other than have internal discussions. They did ask me to come in and speak with the Public Safety Office, which I was happy to do. I was happy to cooperate and say, you know, this was my intent. We spoke for a few minutes to Public Safety. They said, you know, clearly this isn't, you're no threat. You know, you're free to go.
Public safety people at Babson said, clearly you're no threat.
Well, you know, we spoke for a few minutes and they said, oh, you're free to go. Thanks for clarifying.
Why'd you delete this? If this was just intended to be sarcasm, why'd you delete the post?
Well, I was horrified at how people really willfully misconstrued it. And I looked at it and I looked at the really racist comments that people were making as a cause of it. And I said, you know, let me sort of shut it down at the source of that, just to make sure that I and the people I care about don't get these comments continued to be made.
When you mentioned the racist, some of the racist responses, I saw some of the social media, more than one of which said you should be deported. Where were you born, Oisin?
Yeah, I was wondering if they wanted to deport me back to South Carolina or...
You're born in the United States.
I was born in the United States,
but you
born
felt
and raised.
the need, despite that, to say in one of your responses, I'm American born and raised. What did that feel like?
I think that all Americans, no matter what we look like, what our names are, should be able to say, hey, I'm just as American as anyone else, and here's comments that I have about my country, about the administration. It was... I felt like I had to say that because of all the comments saying, that I should be deported.
You're an American-hating terrorist, amongst other things. I read in the Globe, or again, the Times, my apologies, you're a divorced father, too. It said you had to take your kids out of school, had to stay away from home because of threats. Is that why you did this?
Yeah, it's, there were people saying things like, I've got you in my crosshairs, you should be killed in the parking lot, and things like that. And, to go from that to a conversation where my college is saying you're the one with threatening speech is just sort of ludicrous.
Did Babson show any interest in helping to protect you from these threats, even after they had fired you? You have a long history with the school, by the way. This is not like you just showed up there. You have a long history with Babson.
Spent 3 years as a student, 10 years plus as an adjunct professor, and a year on staff.
So
yeah.
More than almost a decade and a half.
Yeah.
They show any concern about the threats that were directed at you?
None.
Why do you think they fired you?
I think they fired me because they wanted to stem the tide of the hateful comments that were being made, and rather than address, this is the truth behind the post and the satire and whatnot, and this is the truth behind this person that we know. I think they just said, hey, we're getting some bad publicity, and this is a way to.
What's the message do you think it sends to faculty, to staff at Babson College? I mean, I don't know anybody. I've spoken to a lot of people about your case long before I knew you were coming. Even those who thought it was inappropriate. No one thought you intended it as threats of violence or anything like that. Yeah. What do you think the effect of their action is, beyond you?
I do think it's chilling. I mean, the place that we should be having this conversation about anything from war to climate to anything that might touch controversial topics, the one place it should be protected the most is on college campuses. If faculty, students, staff are discussing something in a place that has committed to free speech principles, that it's absolutely chilling to think that we have to self-censor because someone might willfully misconstrue.
Are you planning on taking action against Babson? What's your next step?
I'm really just focusing on the support that I've been getting from the community of folks that are really interested in academic free speech, otherwise keeping my options open.
Good luck to you, Oisin. I appreciate your time. Thanks so
much,
much, Oisin Fansay. And by the way, if people from Babson College want to come sit here and defend this action, we'd be happy to have them.